Wings are such a strange type of anatomical feature that we find in various animals, but we also find that wings have been kind of morphed and changed and represented in a completely different way to represent fictional characters such as angels and demons. However, there are many ways to approach a drawing of wings, but in this particular video we will be looking at how to represent a more unique type of wing structure that is more associated with genres of fantasy. So with that being said, hey guys, my name is Matt. Welcome to another strange and interesting video by artincontext.org, where we explore various art related topics, and in today's tutorial we will be breaking down the process of how to draw wings. Now in this tutorial we will be working with some simple materials, so you can use whatever you have available to you. In this tutorial on how to draw wings, we will be learning how to draw a very angelic type of wing structure. We will start with a very basic wing sketch where we work out the fundamental shapes and forms of the wing. From there we'll move on to adding in some light sketching of feathers and slowly start to refine the shape and shadowing of those various feather segmentations within the full wing structure. So with that being said, the way in which we're going to start is we're going to start with a very simple basic outline of the wings. So we're going to start by drawing the basic shape and outline of the wings in their triangular shape. Now we want to make sure that there is symmetry within our wing drawing by keeping the shape of the wings mirrored opposite to one another. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to start lightly sketching details into the wings. So this is where we can lightly erase the basic shape and begin to work on some refined sketching, starting to form the main features of the wings. We want to start with the bone-like structure that defines the shape of the wings, and this type of structure is quite rigid and often geometric in shape, at least in this case for a more angelic type of representation of wings. Now we can also use our pencils to add in some light sketching of the feathers, making sure that we work in long feathers along the outer edges of the wings. As we draw in the feathers, we want to keep in mind that the wings have an elongated area near the bottom of its kind of structure, or the bottom edges, which will naturally also get shorter in length as the wings start to connect to a structure or a body, whatever it is connected to. Now this means that we want to make sure we are conscious of the feather lengths as we draw them in. The feathers are quite spearhead shaped, that is quite long near the outer edges of the wings and shorter near the middle or inner section area of the wings. Now the next thing we're going to move on to is refining the sketch of the wings. So once we have established a basic shape and outline of the wings drawing, we want to make sure that we give the sketch a light erasing. So once we have done so, we will now start to refine the details, starting with the feathers. We want to give the feathers a slightly pointed spearheaded shape, and as we draw in the wings we want to draw them in rows, making sure that they overlap one another. We can do this by drawing the feathers from top to bottom in each wing, and we basically want to create a layering effect, which is what will make the feathers seem a little bit more realistic. Now as we draw in the feathers and create a stacking effect, which is the intention here, we want to make sure that each upper section of the feathers seems to be on top of the feathers below them. If we continue with this process from bottom to top, we should have feathers that seem layered on top of one another, and that is kind of the effect that we're going for in this particular type of representation of wings. We will continue this process for both wings, slowly taking our time to stack feathers. It is also important that as we stack the feathers for each wing, we make sure that they get smaller near the upper bone structure. We also want to make sure that the feathers near the outer edges of the bone structure poke out slightly. This is going to give a little bit more of a unique vulture-like aesthetic to the wings. And again, you can also start to consider how you'd like to represent your type of wing structure by looking at some references of various feather shapes and styles from different animal species, and this way you can kind of get a sense of how this overlapping quality works. But otherwise, as we continue, we also want to make sure that the feathers near the outer edges of the bone structure again are poking out a bit, and then making sure that we are maintaining that elongated feature near those edges, and slowly as we take our time drawing in the feathers, making sure each feather has a spearheaded shape. Now we can start adding some shading to the feathers, and this is where we basically want to work with a darker pencil to add some shading to the wings. We want to slowly work through the wings, this time from top to bottom, slowly adding in some shading near the overlapping areas. We can also start adding some shading to the bone structure, making sure that there is a darkened shading quality near the bottom of the bone structure, almost to suggest that it is protruding and has this three-dimensional quality to it, and therefore casting a subtle shadow on the feather formation that sits just directly beneath it. The bone bone structure on the top section of the wings should be defined as this kind of hardened thing, this hardened shape that protrudes slightly, and this is why we want to shade beneath the structures to suggest that quality of how it casts a shadow on the feathers. This is a unique quality of the wings, and it is important that we apply the shadowing or shading to the bone structure on each wing. So take your time with the darkening of the lower section of this bone structure, making sure you have those shadows slightly beneath it, slightly shaded in. This process of shading in the overlapping sections of each feather will also take some time. So this is also where we want to make sure that the shading has a gradient that slowly starts to shift from a lighter to darker area every time they become slightly more exposed to a light source, in the sense that because we are working with this overlapping quality of feathers on top of one another, naturally they will cast a subtle shadow formation, which will be dense where they are compact and kind of closely grouped together. And slowly, as we see more of the feather, as it slowly starts to be more exposed, it will be then slightly more lighter. So this is kind of the idea. With the feathers, we simply want to take our time with the shading in each feather from the areas that overlap towards the tip of each spearheaded feather shape, which will naturally then get lighter as it becomes more exposed to a light source. So this does take some time. This process of shading in the overlapping sections of each feather will take some time. We also just want to make sure that the shading has a gradient that lightens as it shifts from the overlapping sections to the exposed area in each single feather. So if you do get tired, if you do feel a little bit fatigued, allow yourself to take a break and then come back to it, but this will take some time. However, it will have a very beautiful and realistic quality within your feather drawing and provide more of a three-dimensional aspect to the actual structures of the feather. We will continue this process for both wings, making sure we take our time and keep consistency within the shading. And again, if you feel tired, just remember to take a break. But otherwise, guys, continue with the shading process until you feel you have completed your entire wing drawing, kind of done the same process for both wings. You can also add in some random disheveled feathers to kind of also just give your feather structure or wings a little bit more of a unique and disheveled quality if you'd like. But otherwise, there you have it, how to draw wings in a few simple steps. But otherwise, guys, some key things to think about. Remember to establish the shape of the wings first. The shape is fundamentally important. Consider the light source. Naturally, when shading each feather, we really try to create that gradient within each feather to create a more realistic quality. Take your time with the details, and then lastly, experiment with how you can apply this to your own character designs, whether they are angels, demons, or just random characters that you have conjured up in your mind. Otherwise, guys, thanks so much for tuning in. If you did like this video and are interested in similar or related topics, let us know in the comment section below and we will get to them. You can also show your support by liking and subscribing. That helps us a lot to grow the channel, which ultimately enables us to make more art related content for you guys, which we love to do. So please do like and subscribe, and we will see you in the next video. Otherwise, that's it from me today. Cheers.